Welcome students to this e-learning class. This lecture is primarily meant for the first year students, students of Sem-II. I am going to teach Blake's poem, The Chimney Sweeper. Right? But before going in a detailed description of the poem, I need to give you a brief overview of the prevalent socio-economic condition of 19th century England. You see, romantic movement or romantic literature is hugely influenced by two historical incidents. One of them necessarily is the French Revolution, and the other was the Industrial Revolution. Now, Industrial Revolution did not happen overnight. It was a continuous process. With the rapid development in science and technology, with the advancement of scientific experiments and the setting up of factories, this process of industrialization started. Now, there are several traits of this industrial revolution. What is that? You see, previously there was the agrarian system. I mean the agricultural based system of living, and most of the people used to live in the villages, I mean in the rural atmosphere. Now, with the establishment of factories and with this process of industrialization, the system transformed from an agrarian towards industrialized, right? And people started to come in large numbers to the cities. Those people who were like farmers or associated with agriculture, they started to throng into cities and took up the jobs of laborers, primarily laborers in factories or in chimneys, right? Now, these little children, children about age of 4 to 6, they were sold by their parents because they used to live a life of poverty, misery. There was a very claustrophobic, because there was no abundance of space, no exposure to natural world. So these little children were sold by their parents to the owners of factories, and they were taken as chimney sweepers. Why chimney sweepers? Because the entrance of the chimney used to be very narrow, and it was only possible for a little little children would crawl under the chimney, would go upwards and clean the dust, the rust, all those radioactive particles. And very often they would receive a fatal death, because sometimes they would fall from above and they die. More often, the workers, they did not consider whether any child was up in the chimney. They would lit fire below, and the smoke of the fire generated from the fire would go upwards, and the child would die for not being able to breathe properly. And there was no escape for the child. It was not possible that when a fire is burning beneath the chimney, a child will crawl down and go out from the entrance. It was not possible. So no one cared for those little children. No one even bothered about the chimney sweepers. Such was their life. They were not even considered as human beings. They were as like slaves, little slaves who used to work in chimneys. So this is how the capitalist view used to look down upon these children, this section of the society who were marginalized, right? Now, another thing that I would like to mention is that this transformation from an agrarian system towards an industrial way of life not only signifies the contamination of atmosphere, the corruption in the natural world, right? But it also necessarily, very essentially indicates the degeneration of human values, the corruption of human morality and ethics. So the moral stature of human beings also rapidly decreased. So metaphorically, there are two aspects. There are two levels. One is the physical and one is the psychological. Right? The thing which we need to perceive. Now, not only in Blake's poem, but also if you go through, especially if you look the Victorian literature, if you read Dickens in his novel Oliver Twist or David Copperfield has described this exploitation of child labor. If you read Elizabeth Gaskell's novels, for example Mary Barton or North and South, you will have a glimpse of the industrial England and how these workers, this labor class, were exploited by the factory owners, by the aristocratic class, the people who used to have money, the capitalist patriarchy. So this is very significant, a very similar analogous literary motif present in various texts produced in the 19th century. Now it was until 1833 when the Anti-Slavery Act was passed in the British Parliament, which actually condemned slavery and abolished this system of child labor. But however the act was passed, it was not hugely implemented in society. Child labor still exists in today's world. If you see, if you look around the contemporary society, you will see that many children are forced to work in the tea stalls, in various shops, in various factories, because their parents are unable to feed them. They have to earn their own bread. Rather than going to school, rather than receiving primary education, they are compelled to work. These children are forced to work as laborers. In countries like Myanmar, in South Asian countries, in the African countries like Zimbabwe or Congo, even in our country, India, the situation is still pathetic. Right? So do read this poem from not only analyze its literary qualities, but please read this poem from a human point of view, from a humanitarian outlook. So in my next lecture, I shall go through the